Um, my name's David Rosetzky. I'm a visual artist. I work with photography and moving image. I guess that I'm very interested in portraiture, and I've always sort of responded to sort of portraiture in the history of art, but also I've also been very sort of interested and drawn to advertising and fashion photography as well, and commercial photography, rather than sort of try and define someone or try and find the essence of someone. I'm kind of more interested in sort of presenting this idea of the self or the subject as sort of fragmented or fractured or made up out of a sort of series of sort of contrasting and perhaps contradictory parts. I made a video animation work called Without You. I kind of was presented with this challenge because I was working a lot with speech and language, of wanting to make a work that didn't rely on speech or dialogue but still explored sort of ideas or themes that I was interested in. The idea of the blurred boundaries between people and between self and other, and the kind of connections and crossovers between individuals. The starting point for that work was about sort of memory and maybe even mortality in a way. You know, the memories of people that we've known and that have perhaps, you know, passed away, that they sort of stay within us and they sort of form who we are. With the portrait of Cate Blanchett, I think that that was quite a challenge for me. I kind of had to rethink my approach because she's a public figure, so people had a certain perception of her. A lot of the content or the material in my earlier video works, which included voiceover and so on, people talked about quite intimate things, but the individuals were kind of protected in a way because it was kind of unclear as to whether that information was real or constructed. We as sort of individuals sort of shift and change depending on who we're with and our environment. Having the opportunity to make a work with an actor whose job is to sort of take on different sort of personas and different roles, I thought was a really great opportunity to sort of explore those ideas in a different way. With the sort of invention and rise of social media, I could kind of see that there's a lot of sort of links between what was happening there with the way that people presented themselves and kind of constructed their sense, very sort of carefully and self-consciously constructed their sense of self. Do we have any agency at all in terms of, you know, our voice or the way that we sort of exist or sort of position ourselves in relation to the world, and whether our sort of identity is, you know, is it constructed from within us, or is it more about how others see us? In 2000 I made a video work called Summer Blend. There's maybe about 4 to 5 different people who are applying moisturiser to their body, and the camera just sort of pans slowly kind of up and down the body of the different figures, and then at certain points there's a sort of cross dissolve where a male figure might you know, transform into another subject. Every sort of aspect of our being and our relation to the world has some kind of consumer product kind of attached to it. So it was about this kind of sort of immersion in consumer culture and how our very being is sort of so connected and related to commodities. While I was at art school in Paran, there was a gallery, a small gallery run by artists called Store 5 across the road, which I went to and actually exhibited in, and I found that model quite exciting. I initiated the artist-run space, first floor artists and writers space. There was maybe about 18 artists and writers involved in the beginning, but the space ran for, I think maybe, 1994 to 2002. It was really important for me personally in terms of the formation of my work. I think when I was at art school I was very young. Working within the context of the artist-run space, and first of all particularly, was really where I started to develop the ideas within my work and my practice that it sort of continued on Something that I think about, I think is important for emerging artists is for them to think about where they want to position their work and how they want to frame their work. There's so many sort of directions I think that you could take, and I think it's just important to think about, you know, for young emerging practitioners to ask themselves, you know, what work do I want to make? Where do I want it to be seen, and how does that context sort of inform the work that I'm making? At the same time, I think it's important just to have a sort of strong connection and, you know, with your sort of ideas and your sort of integrity in terms of what your sort of interests in and what your sort of aims and objectives are. And I guess as long as I'm sort of continuing to sort of, you know, enjoy and engage in my practice, that's something that sort of keeps you going. And I really love just sort of being immersed in the sort of making of my work. I mean, that's kind of like the best part of it, really.
And finito.
Yeah, was that okay?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.